Tonight, I'm going to do something a little different. As I mentioned, we're going to do a poetry contemplation. And we did this about a year ago, tried it for the first time. And some of us found it so pleasant and nourishing that we started gathering and picking a poem each month and talking about the poem and doing a contemplation. And found it was really lovely the way that by slowing down and listening, by meditating with the poem as our object, that we noticed the words, we noticed how it resonated in our body, we started to understand more deeply the meaning, the essence of what the poem was saying to us, and how we could carry it into our own lives and find some wisdom. And the process that we use and that we will use tonight is the Dharma Contemplation process that was developed by Gregory Kramer. He actually wrote a book on it that is freely available online. It's in the resources section on the website about this talk, if you're interested. And he developed it as a way to contemplate the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, the suttas. And to use this process. And he imagined it as something that might have been similar to how Buddhism was shared in the early days, when it was communal and before the written word, and people sat down and talked together about it. So there's an aspect of sharing what we're hearing and what we're understanding that's really beautiful. So many teachers realize that Dharma contemplation is a wonderful way to read the Buddhist texts, but there's also a recognition that poetry contemplation can deepen our practice because it helps us touch into emotions. It helps us to see things clearly. The contemplative poet John Brehm describes it this way. He says, "Poetry brings us into living contact with the Dharma. It shows how the Dharma flows through our human experience as poets work with the truth of things, the fundamental conditions of existence, the way things truly are." So this process includes 6 steps, which I'll describe to you, and we're going to use it to contemplate the poem Remember by Joy Harjo. She's a poet laureate in previous years. And if you haven't seen it, there is a handout out there. I welcome you to get it. The handout contains both a copy of the poem on one side. It will also be projected on Zoom. So Brianna will share her screen. So for a while, Zoom folks, and most of us, we're going to see the poem projected on the screen a little later and not faces. So that's something we have to get used to. It's a little different. But feel free to grab a copy if you're here, if you'd like to look at it in person. So the 6 steps in the process, I'll describe them, and then we'll do a guided meditation and we'll do the contemplation. We begin with the first step, which is silence. Calming the mind so that we actually can hear. So our cup isn't full and it doesn't flow over. So that we can really tune into, be present to our own experiences. We can hear others, and we can take it all in. So we'll begin with silence, then listen to the poem, and then remember to take meaningful pauses as people speak to take the time to absorb what's been said. The next step is looking at the words in the poem. So after the silent practice, we'll hear 2 readings of the poem. And the invitation is to just take them in, take in the words. And then we'll take some time to pause and ruminate and notice if there's something that's in the words of the poem that really resonates with you. And if so, you're invited to speak just those words, that word, those phrases, without any explanation, just to speak the words that speak to you. And then we're going to do that just popcorn style. Speak out both here in the room and on Zoom, if you're so moved. After we do that, we'll turn to the felt response that we feel in the body. We might notice that the poem or some of the words really resonates with us. And we might tune into like, where do we feel that? How do we feel that? In this section, we're thinking, when I read this, I feel whatever it might be, an emotion, it might be a challenge, an inspiration. So it's, how does this resonate in the body? And then we move deeper into what is the meaning of the poem? What's the meaning of the text? This is a little more like analysis. Are there nuances or words that give you some insight? Any threads of meaning that are woven through the poem that you notice? Any metaphors or ambiguities that you wonder about? And how do you understand these words? And then the next step is tuning into the essence of what this poem is conveying. What are the truths that are conveyed, the underlying message? This is the essence. And we see how the essence of this poem comes alive in you, and you speak that essence. And then we end with just some open dialogue. Depending on the time, we will set aside the text, set aside the poem, and just speak to how we are feeling in the present moment. And we'll just allow enough time, some silence to soak in each word that is spoken. So just know that we'll move next to a guided meditation. And when we do, after moments of silence, you'll hear the poem. And then we're going to move right into the poetry contemplation. So we're not going to take a break in the middle as we normally do. So feel free to move around, up and down, take a break as you need to. And then our goal is to end a little early, and we can have our cookies and community at the end instead. So feel free to do a little bit of movement and stretching before we settle in, some stillness and silence. Whatever your body's asking you to move, that will allow you to be present and still when we start to meditate. Yes, and feel free to get a copy of the handout if you'd like. And as we begin our practice, you just might want to take a moment to set an intention for your practice. It could be as simple as, I just want to be present here in this moment, in this place. And then we'll begin with just letting go of our everyday concerns. Seeing if we can allow them to wash away those plans, the busyness of the day, allowing it to settle. And see if you can just notice that sense of allowing the attention to travel down from the head and the eyes, the mind, allowing our attention to fall down through the neck, the shoulders, relaxing the shoulders, centering our attention down in the torso, perhaps feeling it arrive in a softened belly. And feeling the sense of contact of the solid body in contact anywhere where we're touching. Hands on the lap, sitting on our seat or cushion. The solidness of sitting here. And noticing the weight and the volume of the legs, the solidness. And the feeling of feet on the floor, imagining them connected to the earth beneath, connecting and centering us. This more solid body like a mountain, still, solid, alive. In the poem, In a Time of Much Doing, how soon I seem to have forgotten how to be still, how to not plan, how to step out into the day and let the world write itself, write the story of how a morning becomes an afternoon, becomes a night, becomes a woman. How soon I seem to have forgotten the value of not doing, the gift of unscheduling, the blessing of dipping my toes into the stream of no time, then wading in full body, where I remember I'm part of an infinite story. At the same time, I relearn how fragile it is, this life. How soon I forgot I could change it all. Even now, I could be still again. I could choose silence. Even now. And letting go of our inner noise, touching on the sounds around us. They touch our ears and our mind. They touch our awareness. Just touching and letting go. Patiently allowing the internal commentary to quiet down. Observing the mind. Like a farmer watching the rain. Softening the grip. Relaxing and releasing the mind. Even now, I could be still again. I could choose silence. Even now. Remember by Joy Harja.
Sky that you were born under, know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon, know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn, that is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away to night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father, he is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people, and all people are you. Remember you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is that life is. Remember.
Remember. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away to night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He's your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them. Listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people and all people are you. Remember you are this universe and this universe is you. Remember, all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember, language comes from this. Remember, the dance language is, that life is. Remember. Taking in all that you've heard. The invitation is to speak the words or phrases that touch you without any explanation. We'll take just a moment in silence to take in all that we've heard, to absorb the words, the feeling, the insights. The heartfelt understandings. And the wisdom that we gain from sitting with one another. With hearing one another's voices. And remembering to listen. And thank you all for this practice together. And invite you to stay around and chat and have some cookies. And wish you could be here, folks on Zoom. Thank you for being together tonight.
Thank you, Mary Louise. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Louise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Louise.